With the portfolio to produce the safety, and I invite Councillor Dalston to introduce his report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would ask members to note the content of my report and the community safety portfolio which is previously being circulated. And in doing so, I would highlight Operation Stay Safe, as set out in paragraph 7 and 8. A fantastic initiative which is multi-agency and various departments within council brought together to tackle specifically underage drinking. Quite significant time, so it was the end of the school term, which we went out last. Really successful. It allows us to seize the alcohol of the children, but also work with our partners and understand what's going on. And actually, in some instances, it gives us an opportunity to intervene in terms of social services, the emergency duty care team. And the second point I'd like to highlight is the work that's ongoing with regards to Purple Flag, which is an initiative to strengthen our nighttime economy to be a vibrant and safe place here in Darlington. We had an assessor that came down. He's a police officer from Sheffield, and he is doing a lot of work specifically in Scotland when he came down to support us, and actually it's really positive, the feedback we had. It highlighted a lot of the stuff that we take for granted, like lighting, signage, that we actually back ourselves down with. He was really impressed, and we also commented on the lack of graffiti within the town centre. So another really great point. We will get assessed officially in December, and I will update members in the early new year with the outcome of that.
Thank you, Councillor Dalston. Are there any questions for Councillor Dalston? So, Councillor Hazeline, Councillor Crumley, and Councillor McCollum will start, please. Councillor Hazeline.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I congratulate Councillor Dalston on his upbeat report? And to be fair, I wouldn't expect anything else. Having known Councillor Dalston since he was a pupil at Eastbourne, he was always up front and a jumpman. The problem is, it gives you a double-edged meaning to it. And it is damning really when you think about it. If 4% reduction in crime is 4,226 crimes, how many crimes are actually happening? If 1% is 600 crimes, how many crimes are actually happening? And one of the things around, this report that says reporting of crimes down, it's down because there's a lack of confidence in the police responding. And I just hope that the council will work closely with the police and with the council to try and improve people's perceptions of the police force and the council enforcement team around crime. I'm not saying that it's really bad, but you know yourself, if you go around, people talk about grass culture. And this grass culture means that neighbours will not ring the police. There's also this culture of what's happening in my front door. I can't see it, I'm not interested in it. As communities and community leaders, we need to be getting the message across the community. But it doesn't matter if the crime is at the end of the street or it's round the corner. It is your community, and really you have a duty to help your community to cut down the level of crime within the area. So we need an understanding around that. The issue again, I'm not going to be overcritical, but on paragraph 7 and 8, and I understand the upbeat mood that we've taken a few cans off a few kids. But believe you me, for every kid you stop and take one off, cans off, there's 10 somewhere else across the borough. And I applaud the efforts that's being made. But it really is frustrating when these cans are taken off the kids, and the kids' parents ring up and say, you can't take that beer off him, I bought him that. And that's what happens. Parents are giving the kids a pack of 4, and it's irresponsible, and it's because it gets them out of the house and away from them. And that's irresponsible parenting. And I think we should be doing something around education issues, around young people and drink, and the downside of it. Don't get me wrong, we all like to drink now and again. Some of us like to drink even when we were young, but you learn through your mistakes, and believe you me, I've made some mistakes through alcohol when I was younger. And we need to help the police and the town enforcement officers.
Councillor McGill wanted to take the spade off you, Councillor.
Was he?
Anyway, moving on.
I know where you live. So I'd say I compliment you on the upgrade report. We have some issues around antisocial vehicular behaviour, and I don't think the police and the council are doing enough around these issues. I spoke to one of our wardens, our enforcement officer today, in relation to a couple of issues in the Stevenson ward, and they were really upbeat about, yeah, we can get there, we can do that. It won't be today, but we'll get. And I'm saying to them, I'm not bothered if it's today. I'm making you aware these things are happening. Will you ensure that you do? And they were great about it. So congratulations to our enforcement officers, our new team. I think they're doing really well. The only thing that does worry me is I made a report to our enforcement team the other day, and the reply I got was it's going to take 14 days to investigate and get back. And that seems an awful long time for us as councillors to be fending off, and I mean fending off residents who are not happy about the situation. Even though you reported it, you're not going back and knock on the door, you meet them in the shop or whatever and say, I reported that issue, sorry to tell you what, I won't have a response for you for 14 days. I think we need to look at that, and where there's opportunities to do quicker reports so we can allay the fears of residents, that needs to be done. But on all, a real big report, expecting nothing more.
Thank you, Councillor Hazeline. Councillor Crumley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Dalston, with reference to Operation Stay Safe, please could you inform members of the numbers of young people that were engaged with and the number of referrals made? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crumley. Councillor McCollum has the final question of this round.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Referring to points A and B of paragraph 5 of this report, I'm sure that we are all concerned by reports of antisocial behaviour perpetrated by young people around Faverdale and Middleton St George. At last Ordinary Council, I asked him to consider the lack of diversion that results in groups of young people gathering on a nightly basis in Darlington Town Centre. At the same time, £880 million has been cut from youth services by local authorities in England trying to protect essential services from Tory enforced austerity. 600 youth clubs have closed, and youth justice spending, which is vital to reducing reoffending and keeping young people out of the justice system in the first place, has been cut by about half since the Tory government took over in 2010. So I would like to ask the member, does he recognise the damage that his government have done to the young people of our borough, and subsequently the amount of antisocial behaviour that results that impacts all of our youths? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McCollum. Councillor Dalston.
Thank you. I will start probably with Councillor McCullum first, because that's probably the most trickiest, but I didn't expect anything less. We fundamentally disagree. I mean, I don't believe that the choice to cut youth services was necessary. That was a decision youth made, and this can hide under the umbrella of it was austerity. That's what we had to do. We had no choice. Fundamentally disagree. You had a choice, and you made a choice, and that choice was to remove youth services from the provision we offer in Darlington. So that's the first point. The second point, thank you, Councillor Hazeline. With regards to crime, it is a very difficult and complex issue. We're not going to eradicate crime overnight, but I think you will agree 4% is a positive step in the right direction. Now, just to take it one step further, antisocial behaviour is also down, but reported crimes are also down. That's the same in the town centre, where antisocial behaviour is down, crime is down, and reported incidents is down. So I accept there's a significant way to go. I'm just distracted because your colleague's taking a picture of me, but if she wants me to smile, I don't mind. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so I've lost my train of thought now because I'm just conscious that you got me right side. So, where was the up to? I mean, Councillor Crumley, I'll be honest, I don't have the figures to hand. I wouldn't like to guess. It is quite technical, and although I do retain a lot of information, I'm not that good.
Okay, thank you. Next round of questions. I've got Councillor Howarth, Councillor McEwen, and Councillor Snetsky. Councillor Howarth. Forgive me. Councillor McEwen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Dalston, thank you for the window on your thinking really around prioritisation and how we can make choices on deployment of resource. The question really is, you intimated that we had a choice, and I would ask a question around the fact that I'm presuming you've had quite detailed briefings coming into being in administration and in control. And some of those briefings will have been about financial affairs, and it follows you will have, as a ruler group, had it spelt out to you, and as all new members will have done, the difference between statutory and non-statutory, and the significant cuts, austerity, and the significant cut central grant, which in a sense left us no choice. I'm quite happy to have a written response about, I genuinely welcome, you know, if you were back in the day, what choice, what you would have, what statutory service you would have cut. I would happily welcome that, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McEwen. Councillor Staker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Referring to point 14 or paragraph 14 of the report, where you refer to a scheme to empower children to keep the roads around their schools safe. I'm just wondering if we may be asking too much of children to redesign and police the roads around their school in order to be safe, or is this passing a difficult problem on to people who are least likely to have the resources to achieve the safety they very rightly reserve? In fact, is it us as the Transport Authority who should be making the changes that are so desperately needed? We know that the number of traffic police nationally have been cut by 1/3 over the last decade of austerity, and this has, I feel, led to a rising proportion of drivers who see the law as something that doesn't really apply to them when they're on the road. And in fact, the most recent data I've seen from the DFT shows that 56% of drivers in built-up areas drive illegally. So could I ask Councillor Wilson to support bringing a scheme to Darlington that has proved to be so effective and popular in other parts of the UK? It's a scheme called School Streets, where the road in front of the school is closed for a short period to through traffic for the beginning and end of the school day. In fact, I've already communicated with Councillors Johnson and Howell, and we hope to bring a trial scheme to Darlington in the near future.
Thank you, Councillor Staker. Councillor Curry, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as the civil enforcement team go, I've been working closely with them with the issue in Northgate, where there is a number of drivers who don't seem to understand what double yellow lines are for, and double yellow lines on the pavement as well as on the road. I want to thank them for the work that they've done in trying, being out and about and being seen. My only concern is that with only the number of enforcement officers we have, they can't police it 24/7. And Northgate is absolutely rife with people who do not obey the rules of the road and the markings on the road. And they do hinder access to my road where I live for ambulances and fire engines if we ever need them. And so I do welcome the work they've done, but I do feel that we may need more in the future if people continue to ignore the rules of the highway code.
Thank you, Councillor Curry. Councillor Dalston to reply.
I'll start with Councillor McEwen. I think it was probably more of a statement that we'll probably just walk backwards and forwards with. I think there is some clear understanding between the strains that you had, although I think it is very easy to make the political point and hide under the umbrella of austerity, and I will continue to say that because that's fundamentally what I believe. Got a reaction from the Leader of the Opposition. The second point is I don't actually feel that we are passing this on to children. I feel that educating children is just another part of addressing the issue. So there will still be the enforcement, there will still be the engagement with the police, we will still be looking at partners and engaging with the schools. But part of that process has to be to engage with the young people because it is something that affects them. So we are really keen to look at the model you've just said. My colleague Councillor Howard has just said the officers are taking that away to something that they will try. But absolutely on the same page as you. Anything that we can look at that's working across the country, we should be exploring here in Darlington. Final point was from Councillor Perry. I do agree with you that road safety is an issue in terms of reporting. I just want to go back a couple of points to what Councillor Esselgard said, because he raised a very valid point, and that was us as community leaders and as councillors have a responsibility to be advocates of reporting and supporting our communities. Now, just to give you one example of this, a few weeks ago I asked one of the officers to put a senior reported leaflet in the ducats of all of the members in the room. There's now a pile of those leaflets that are stood up on top of the confidential waste bin, which highlights to me, well, where have they gone? Because they're certainly not being distributed to residents or put up on in community centre notice boards. So that's a challenge to use and to us, that if we're really passionate about delivering change and being, to really identify and get confidence back, then we all have a responsibility, and we all have a responsibility to use the tools that are available. So my urge and plea here is to use the tools that we are trying to give to you to build that confidence back, because like I've said, safety starts with us all, and I need everyone's buy-in for us to really tackle the issues that are facing Darlington in terms of antisocial behaviour. Thank you.
Thank you. Next round of questions. I have Councillor Harker. Are there any other questions for Councillor Johnston? Councillor Holroyd? Okay, Councillor Harker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Follows on from the question that Councillor McEwen gave and the response that Councillor Dunstan gave. I'm aware that Mr. Wildsmith gave, as part of induction to members, a long instruction to the local authority. I'm aware that a big chunk of that was looking at the council's finances, and I think Mr. Wildsmith made it abundantly clear how poor this local authority is after 10 years of austerity. I'm not sure if Councillor Dunstan is aware, our annual budget is around 90 million pounds. Most of that now goes on statutory services. We have very little left for non-statutory services. When I last looked, it's around £2.5 million. There's many things that we do that most residents find hard to believe are non-statutory. Things as simple as cutting the grass. Much of the money that we have that is for non-statutory services are done on things that are frankly essential. And the fact that youth services are being cut, and I have to say they're being decimated up and down the country, it's not just this local authority. And to say that it's been poor judgment by this local authority to cut services to young people in terms of youth services is farcical when you look at what's happened up and down the country. Every local authority has had to make those same hard choices, not just this local authority. And if you didn't realise that, I beg you to revisit the slides that Mr. Wildsmith gave to you, so that you get a better understanding of the financial difficulties that this local authority still faces. Austerity, despite what our government says, is far from over.
Thank you, Councillor Harker. Councillor Holroyd, I have the last question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to flag up a brief point about the training standards issue that was reported in point 9. It's reported that training standards was warning people about a scam letter using social media. Now, unfortunately, whilst many of our elderly people often will use social media, many won't. So it may, just to flag up that for many that may not be the most appropriate method to warn elderly people about scams, and we may need to consider broadening that out as other methods of getting through to them. I am aware there was a press release about it as well. If I could also comment on the purple flag scheme, obviously welcome that. We'd also push that, obviously to have a safe, diverse and vibrant evening offer, should we say. I would very much welcome less of a focus on alcohol-based entertainment in the town centre. It's very off-putting, and obviously you get lots of rowdy people. So yeah, late night cafes, restaurants open late, that sort of thing, arts cafes. Any broad offer would be most welcome that doesn't involve drinking on Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holroyd. Councillor Dawson to reply.
I'll start with the last question first. We are looking at a broad range of activities, so we don't exclusively look at licensed premises. We look at the Hippodrome, we look at what's going on. We went to visit clue dealing, which is a room where you get clues. It's extremely difficult. Thank God we weren't locked in. But we look at the whole picture. There's gaming centres in Darlington, so we are looking at what the attraction is. Also the restaurants in Darlington, cafes, etc., stuff like that. I'm very good at remembering. The second question was, Councillor?
Was it on training standards, Councillor?
Yes, training standards.
Okay, so with regards to training standards, the communication team have sent out a questionnaire to because I don't know how many people have replied, asking them what they would like from an authority to support them in producing newsletters, because I think you're absolutely right, there is still a place for a physical newsletter, there's still a place for the magazines. So I would urge members, if you've got any suggestions how we can target people who are not necessarily tech savvy, then we would also welcome you to pass that feedback on. The final point we'll end on is austerity. We're going to go backwards and forwards. I fundamentally believe that this was a choice, and the member of the opposition, the leader of the opposition did say that we were left with little money. I appreciate that. I do have regular conversations with Mr. Wildsmith, and I appreciate the financial strain that we were in then, and I understand the strain that we're in now, but I also know that there is choices to be made, and when we make choices, there is still room to make those choices and prioritise certain elements, so we're fundamentally going to disagree. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dalston. Item 8E is the